Hey YouTube, Jason Mills here. How we doing today? I wanted to talk about a subject that I find to be very, very important and very relevant to today's younger generation. And that's, should I go to college? Coming up next.
Here, take this. What's in here?
I want to start off with the fact that I went to Louisiana State University. That's LSU for short. Go Tigers. So the first thing I want to talk about is online versus on campus. These are two completely different things. I have absolutely no experience with online classes, so I'm not the right person to ask about it. All of my experience was on campus, and I actually feel terrible for all these students that are going through this COVID phase where they're having to take these online classes
I can't do it!
instead of getting the full experience of actually being on campus. So I started college in 2006, August of 2006, where I studied accounting. And my first semester, first year and a half or so, all the students from New Orleans, like Tulane University, University of New Orleans, those students had migrated to LSU. And there was about 55,000 students on campus, which was total madness. I mean, all my classes were like 700-800 people, and it was just this insane amount of people always. It was like a small city right there on campus at all times. And this is like very unique to college because no one cares if you're there, if you're not there. You could just show up on the test days and no one would ever notice. Is that a good thing? Yes and no. It allows your schedule to be more flexible. However, you have to have the self-discipline to actually get in there and go to your classes and actually learn the material so you don't fail. So LSU is a party school for the most part. We won the national championship in football in 2007. And that was my sophomore year. And a school like this, there's always like a happening bar scene. There's always something to do. There's always someone to hang out with, party to go to. Game day, you kind of tailgate all day long.
Oh my god! I thought this was a classy party.
Which is a really cool experience. It really, really is. And I don't think you should avoid that because I think that's a very important part of actually going to college. And a tip you learn throughout the process is that, hey, if there's friendships, if there's relationships, if there's anything that might take more of your time, even if it's work or something like that, then you want to kind of schedule your harder classes in the same semester. So I studied accounting, and when you're studying a specific major, you're going to meet people also in that major, just in your classrooms and stuff like that. And you talk to those people and you can start gauging which classes are more difficult, which classes are easier, and you want to try to load your more difficult classes in the same semester, knowing that, hey, I'm not going to be spending as much time with friends, as much time partying, as much time working, but my easier classes, I can really have a great time. So while I was in college, I actually had both experiences. I commuted to LSU for about 2.5 years. I lived about 8 miles away, which is it doesn't seem like that much, but in a small city like Baton Rouge, it was about a 20-25 minute drive to get to campus. And then the last part of the year, I lived at a small apartment on the North Gate, right off of campus. And I'm telling you, you don't necessarily have to live in a dorm. You can live in an apartment right there by campus. But if you really want to get the full university experience and like enjoy yourself the entire time, you need to be right there. You need to be on campus. So living on campus is super important because you're right in the thick of it. You're right there at the library all the time, right there at the Union, talking to people. Like, that's where I started drinking coffee, and I would just sit there and talk to people, see what their view on life is. So like, you get all these different perspectives. Like LSU personally had 240 different countries represented as students, and these students would come from Africa and Asia and Europe, and they all have these unique life experiences. So the more people you talk to, the more you can build as a person, because you're just going to spend more time on campus. You're going to spend more time meeting people. You're going to spend more time in the Union. You're going to spend more time in the library, just talking to people. You're going to spend more time in the courtyard, the fairgrounds. And then there's always like some kind of like networking event right there on campus where you can just go and meet other people that are going to the same school as you and that are trying to find things to do. And these people end up being your network throughout the rest of your life. Like the people you met in high school, a lot of them you're not even gonna speak to. I don't really talk to anybody I know from high school, but the people I met in college are still like relevant in my life 10 years later. You know, I'm more likely to reach out to one of them if I actually need something. And that's what college does for you. It provides these opportunities to meet future people, and living on campus is so important because I had a bike. I could just bike to anything. LSU is about 3 miles across, so walking is almost like you can walk sometimes, but it can take a really long time if you only have 20 minutes to get from one class to the other, and if they're on other sides of the campus, you just grab a bike, boom, you're there in 5 minutes. Or if you have a bike, you could just, somebody text you like, hey, we're at this restaurant right on. Like living on campus, you're right there next to the best restaurants, like because all the best ideas that came out of the university you're going to, they just opened a restaurant right there by campus, and they're successful because their food is outstanding. And these are things that like you will experience in college. Because if the food is good or the bar scene is good, it's gonna be successful right there on campus. There's enough of a community that will frequent that place and provide it with enough revenue streams that it's definitely worth opening right there on campus. So some of the best places in your entire city are gonna be right there near the university, which is something you learn. So living on campus, super important because you could party, you can hang out with your friends, you could study. A big study tip that I learned, and it wasn't until years later, like it wasn't until my senior year that I learned this, and it was the most important study tip I had ever learned. If you study for an hour every day before an exam for about 8 or 9 days before the exam, you're gonna get an A. If you cram for 15 hours to 20 hours before the exam, you're gonna get a C. I know this from experience, okay? Like, I would study 24, 30 hours. There's ways to do that. You'll learn about it in college.
I'm gonna say about drugs. Stay away from them. There's a time and a place for everything, and it's called college.
I don't want to get into that just yet, but I would study 24, 30 hours before an exam, cramming, and get a C. And then when I started studying for an hour and a half every day for the week before the exam, like every single day, just having the discipline to study for an hour to an hour and a half, I'd get an A. I'd study a third of the time and get an A. On campus though, I think it is probably the best thing I ever did. I am not an accountant today. I don't want to be an accountant. I studied accounting, and that piece of paper is just, hey, can you manage your life? Like work-life balance, can you manage your life and still achieve a long-term goal? The work is like passing all your classes, getting that piece of paper. I don't necessarily think the diploma is even like relevant today, especially for me because I'm not an accountant, but I don't think it's necessarily relevant for anybody unless you're like a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Maybe they have a little bit different experience, but I think just being able to achieve a long-term goal shows potential employers that, hey, this person, if I trust them to work on a project, I know they can get it done. Even if they're younger, coming out of college, they know how to manage their life. They know how to still have fun. They know how to still have relationships, have friendships, be social, yet still be able to go ahead and accomplish a long-term goal. And this is something that like college is almost a training ground for this type of thing. Like the experiences start you for the rest of your life. Being able to manage partying, having fun, and getting a degree is the same as when you get later and you're trying to manage kids. And work a full-time job. Like all of these things are super relevant. They're all part of the experience. It started me knowing how to handle what I needed to handle. What do you need to get done? You need to pass this test. Okay, well, how do I still have fun with my friends? Okay, you can have fun with your friends, but you need to go ahead and study right now, and then you need to study at least a little bit on the trip over there, and then you need to study on the trip back, and you're gonna be fine. And these are all things you learn how to manage. And college taught me some skills in these types of scenarios that I still use to this day. But those 4.5 years shaped the rest of my life. That's when I started traveling. I never traveled when I was a kid or when I was in high school, but when I was in college, some of my friends would be like, hey, let's go to Houston this week. Hey, let's go to Florida this week. And we would just get in the car and drive 8 hours and then boom, we're there and we're partying on a beach when it just didn't make any sense. Like literally 24 hours before that, the thought had never even occurred to me to be in Florida, and then you're in Florida. But this happens in college to everybody. This is true life experience. These are things that actually happen to me. If you're out there actually trying to meet people, you're gonna have this type of experience. And that's what college is all about. It's about being able to manage all these different things. And this is all for on campus. I think online does provide some educational benefit to people, but it's a completely different experience that I really just don't have any information on. All in all, should you go to college? So I have a degree from LSU in accounting, and I did have a scholarship. I do think that's a necessary component of it. I didn't actually have to pay for school, but should you actually just go and get your bachelor's degree? I think 100%. Like, I think if you have an opportunity to get on that university and just experience that, like, it changed me forever. I think college was necessary in my life. I don't look back at those years and be like, that was a waste of my time. I credit LSU and any of these large universities is gonna have a similar experience, but I would definitely try to shoot for a larger university because I think some of the smaller ones can feel kind of cliquey and more like high school, whereas a school as big as LSU, there's just, like, how are you gonna have a clique? There's still 30,000 that are looking for friendships, looking for people to meet, looking for networking opportunities, looking for potential people to actually get into business with in the future. And just the experiences I gained, the life lessons I learned, being able to manage life, party, do all these different things and still achieve a goal, something that's still relevant today. So you should definitely look at it. If it makes financial sense for you, go ahead, try it out. I mean, the first year, most people drop out, so make sure you stay at least 2 years. But by the end of that second year, you'll be convinced that this was right for you. Hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button, throw me a subscribe. You can follow me on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, any of these social platforms. If you have any questions at all about my personal experiences, leave me a comment. I will totally answer, all right? Thanks for watching. Have an excellent day.